everyone, welcome to part 2 of a series of videos I'm doing on the new 991.2 911. Last week I posted a video that was really based around the engine, the sounds of this new engine, the performance of this new engine, and other little nuances of this new engine. I'll put a link to that video up here in the corner. This video today is about the changes to this car. Specifically, I'm going to park it next to Peter's 991.1 and we're going to compare what body changes are on the outside. I'm going to go over the internals, what's changed on the inside here, which is not much. And then finally I'm going to go through the details of what new options are available on the 991.2. So if you're looking for a video where I'm screaming up and down a road in a 911, this is not the video for you. If you're looking for a video where I go into excruciating detail on the options and changes to the 991.2, this is your video. So I wanted to stop and talk for a minute about the changes to the outside. A lot of changes, very slight, but when you see the car in real life, they make a big difference. And one of the ones that Peter and I noticed straight away is this crease in the hood here, which is lacking in the dot one, and it just gives the car just a little bit more character. We really like this new crease, and of course there's a big change to how the front end looks. It's a little bit more like the Sport Techno, which originally I wasn't that fussed on, but now that I've seen it in real life and getting used to it, you know, I'm really drawn to it. It looks slick. For comparison, here's the dot one. Other minor changes: the front indicators and running lights, quite different. Much larger in the dot one, as you can see, slimmed right down for the dot two. There's a new lip down the side here. If I bring the camera up here, you can see there's a sort of a lip on the side here. If I whip you around to the sunny side of the dot one, it's just flat along here. And dot one, unless you got specific rims, the dot one had standard 295s without the rim protector on the tyres. Now all the dot twos have 305s, and they include the rim protector, which is just this little lip here on the tyre. Well worthwhile. And even without spacers, you know, this wheel is sitting perfectly in the arch and lines up perfectly with the side of the car. Of course, in the rear, the lights on the dot one are flat, whereas on the dot two we now have these indented lights that we first saw on the Macan. The door handles are cleaned up. So here's the door handle on the dot one, and if you have a look at the door handle on the dot two, you no longer have the insert, and of course it's just a different shape, and it just has cleaner lines. This car has the sport mirrors, so we can't compare them, but I believe the mirrors stay the same on the 1 and the 2 for the standard mirrors. The headlights look different, but that's only because this car has the LEDs, whereas Peter's car, the dot one, has the Xeons, and I much prefer this look. It just looks more natural 911, that look. The rounded single bulb just seems to work better in the light fixture to me. Of course, around the back, you've got the new vents. Here's the vents on the dot one, and the new vertical vents on the dot two. This has certainly been a controversial change. Lots of people don't like this. Personally, I don't mind it. I think it's fine. It's certainly something that people just have to get used to. Still the quintessential shape of the 991. Just minor changes. Just tweak it and make it a better looking car with the 991.2. An interesting comparison that's got nothing to do with the dot one, dot two on these two cars is that one's a 4S and one's a standard S, which is the difference between a wide body and a regular body, and you can really see it when they're side by side like this. So here's the flare on the S. If we go over here, you'll see the flare on the 4S. The wider bodies just give a more pronounced rear end, and it's not that noticeable until you see the cars side by side. You just see that much more definition in the arch here. Okay, so aside from the cosmetic changes externally, there's a couple of new options available for the outside as well. The first one being the front axle lift, which this car doesn't actually have, so I can't demonstrate it. I've never really had a problem with the clearance on the 911s, but I think for people that have got very steep driveways or some area in their daily drive where it's going to be difficult not to scrape the front of the car, I think the front axle lift is a pretty good idea. It's not cheap, $2,600, but for those of you with difficult clearances, certainly worth considering. The second one is the rear axle steering. Similar to a feature that was first featured in a Honda Prelude back in the late 80s. The feature turns the wheel the same way at higher speeds and against the front wheel at lower speeds. In the 911, I believe it's 50 miles an hour to turn the wheel with the front wheel, and 30 miles an hour to turn it against. And the reason for that is at high speed, obviously it's helping with the turning of the car, both wheels tracking together, and at lower speed it's helping get the car for parking and so forth. How much of a difference it makes, I really couldn't tell you. I've driven a lot of these 911s with the rear wheel steering, and I can't say I've ever noticed a huge difference. I was even lucky enough to, when they launched the Turbo and the Turbo S a couple of years ago, I went to a Porsche day and I had an instructor take me around the track, and he was showing me what a difference the rear wheel steering made. And I was nodding and smiling and saying, yeah, wow, it really makes a big difference. But of course, inside I was going, I don't really notice a difference at all. And I think for those people that would regularly take their 911 to its edge, to the edge of its performance, I think the rear wheel steering would make a big difference. But for most people, I don't think they're really going to notice. That said, there are a couple of features about the rear wheel steering that I think people overlook as well. The first one being that it does help with its turning circle when you're just turning around in traffic or trying to park the car. The car has a smaller turning circle, so you can often do a U-turn where you couldn't without the rear wheel steering, which is nice, and apparently helps with the parking a little bit. And another big one is that everyone I think overlooks, and that is a bit of a secret problem with the 911 that's been with this generation from the start. And some people notice it, some people don't. And that is the front wheels, when they're in full lock, one way or the other, one wheel has a smallest turning radius than the other. And what that causes is, especially in cold weather or slippery weather, is sometimes if you're backing your 911 out and you've got the wheel in full lock, because one wheel is turning a smaller radius than the other one will jump. So I always see it on the forums. People just bought their 911 and they're backing it out of somewhere, and suddenly they get this thud, thud, thud as they feel that wheel jumping because it's got the smaller turning radius, and they freak out. Why is my car making that banging sound? And then they find out it's just this issue with the front tracking of these wheels in these cars. I believe the rear steering axle helps with that problem. You get that a lot less. Not that it's a big problem, but I never really was that bothered by it, but I did have a few people comment at me going, how much did you pay for this car, Nick? And it makes that noise. So it's an embarrassing problem more than a real problem. And so I believe the rear axle steering does help with that shuddering when you're backing at full lock. The next one, of course, was always available in the previous generation, the sports exhaust system. The change now being that it's now just two pipes centered at the back. I'm still unsure about that new look. It's growing on me, but the sports exhaust system is, it's a tricky one to know whether to get it or not. Now it's obvious that you've got it, so I think more people will get it, and I think that's why Porsche did this, because it's obvious that you've spent the money now, whereas in the previous generation you couldn't really tell from the outside whether you'd spent the $3,000 to get this system. What does it do? Well, it just makes the exhaust a little louder. How much louder? Not really that much, actually. When it's getting right up into the revs, it certainly makes a much louder howl, but for the rest of the time it really doesn't make that much difference. Let me demonstrate. Here it is with it off. And here it is with it on. You see, not that much difference on the outside, and a little bit of difference here in the cabin. There's a little pipe that pipes the noise in from the back, and it opens up a little bit more when you've got it turned on. In the previous generation there was a sort of a membrane, and it made it tighter or looser depending on what you had the switch on. So the sports exhaust system doesn't do anything for the performance, just makes the car louder. Whether or not that's important to you, I guess is completely up to you, but at $3,000 it's an expensive option, but it does change the external look of the car now. Okay, so onto the interior, and very little has changed on the interior. In fact, it looks exactly the same as the 991.1, with the exception of new steering wheels and a new Porsche communication management system. But there are one or two other little things I'll bring your attention to. But first thing is something free from Porsche, which we never get. It now, all 991.2s now include the voice assist button on the end of the indicator stalk here. It used to be, I think, a $270 option, which no one got. In fact, I only ever drove one 991.1 with that option, and it didn't work very well at all for me. But then again, I've got a funny accent, so maybe no one understands me. But yeah, the new one seems to work just great. You press this button and there's a whole lot of voice commands you can give it, and I guess that really ties in with some of the new features of the PCM, including the Apple CarPlay. But yeah, the thing that I love the most is really the new wheels. I guess they come from the 918s, but we first saw them in the Macans, and there's really three varieties: the basic Macan steering wheel, and then there's the multi-function with heating on it. What's that? That's just under $500, and then you can pay for the GT Sport add-on, which adds these little details here. With the multifunction and those little details, I think it looks a little busy, but I want to talk more about that in the packages. The other big change to the wheel, of course, as well, is this little multifunction dial here, which takes you through the driving modes. It used to be down here in the center console. That is a nice addition. I really like being able to flick through the driving modes without having to take my hand off the wheel. So that's a big improvement. But really the other big improvement, of course, is the PCM. So the new PCM just looks a little different. The screen runs straight across now instead of having edges around it like the old one. But the biggest thing you notice about the new PCM is how colourful it is compared to the old one. There was really actually nothing wrong with the old one. It actually worked fine. It was just not that intuitive, and it was very monochrome. Everything was black and white. Whereas the new one, everything you do, you notice a big splash of colours now pops up in your face. Whether it's the radio or the media, and particularly the navigation system. Navigation system is now the Google Maps navigation system you see in the Audis, and it's beautiful. It's not just beautiful on this screen, but it can also show up in the little multifunction display on the instrument cluster. So yeah, big improvements, and of course now incorporates Apple CarPlay and the Android system, and just works so much better. It's just adds a nice touch to what was a bit of a bland system. Now is up to date, and you know, I don't know that Porsche get any credit for finally bringing it up to date, but I'm glad that they do. And of course, under this little plate here is spots for SD cards for those people wanting to jump back in time 10 years and put their music on SD cards. But yeah, it all works very well. It's a lot more intuitive. It knows when your fingers are near the screen. A big improvement over the old PCM. Another nice change to the internals is the ability to add lane change assist. You'll see the little lights in both corners here. Actually, I think they're perfectly done. A lot of lane change assist lights are not bright enough or too distracting. This is just the right brightness. I really like this addition. Apart from the cost, it's a little costly, as with everything with Porsche. $850 for the lane change assist, which of course what it does is just telling you when there's a car in your blind spot. Other changes onto the instrument cluster. Nothing's changed on the instrument cluster at all, apart from the addition of a boost gauge now, optional within the multifunction. Just shows boost pressure when you're putting your foot on the gas. Something they've taken away inside is the ability to split the material options. What I mean by that is when you order, if you custom order your 911, you can have carbon fiber or aluminium or leather or even wood as part of the center console and around the edges here. And it used to be that you could have one around the edges and the center console have something else, which is very nice. I personally was going to do that. I was going to have aluminium around the edges and leather in the center here, but now they've combined the two, so whatever you pick for the edges is also in the center console, which is It's a shame they've made that change, but I don't think many people used to split it, so I guess it made sense to make that change. So that pretty much wraps it up for the interior. As I said, not many changes to the interior. Let's talk a little bit about the new options. Okay, so on to options. Obviously there's a few new colours. I'm not going to go through those, but speaking of colours, there is a change to the pricing of paint to sample, or the custom colours options, which used to be about $5,500. Now they've increased the price to $7,000, so it's a bit of a bump, which is a shame for those of us thinking of getting a custom colour. However, if you're interested in custom colour, the best way to look into it is to read up on the forum on Rennlist. There's a whole section there, Porsche exclusive and new, and they often list all of the colours that have been approved by Porsche, and that list has really increased over the last couple of years. There's a good couple of hundred different colours there now. So you want to get a colour that's already pre-approved, because if you don't get that, it can take 6 months or more to approve a colour, and it may never get approved anyway. So there's a good range of colours. Some of them are pretty bad. If you're thinking of getting a custom colour, run it past your partner first, because there are so many people that make custom colours, spend all that money, and then they're just not happy with it, but most people are. As for wheels, there's now 4 choices of wheels, but don't fret if you don't like the 4 choices of wheels. What Porsche have a tendency to do is wait 6 months after release and then start adding on more wheels. So I'm sure more wheel options will be available for the 991.2 very shortly. As for the internal leather options, disappointingly the two-tone grey coloured options have been dropped, and really now the only white or light colour option includes the graphite blue in it, which really limits the combinations that can be put with external colours. So I'm hoping they might come out with more internal colours, but if they don't, you know, there's some nice options there anyway, but you know, people tend to go with black, like in this car, more often than not. So on to packages, and I think there's one package that's going to be very popular with people, particularly for people that are doing a higher spec 991.2, and that is the Sport package. The Sport package includes 5 things, 3 of which are very popular. First one being the Sport Chrono package, which just about everyone gets anyway. The second one being the Sports Exhaust, which is very, very popular. The third being the rear wheel steering, which is not so popular. And then fourth being the GT style steering wheel, and the fifth being the Sport design mirrors on the outside. Normally those 5 things together add up to about $7,900. With the Sport package, it's only $6,200. I know, it's a bargain from Porsche, saving you about $1,600. So it's a no-brainer for people that are getting those first 3 big items. They're really sort of throwing in the other 2 smaller items and giving a discount on the first ones. However, there's a word of caution I give you about that package, and that is that I don't know that the last 2 items are going to be that popular. Particularly the steering wheel. The steering wheel, when you add multifunction with the heating, and then you also add the GT Sport side of it, adds these little details to it, and it becomes a very busy looking steering wheel. I think too busy in a way. There's just too much going on there, so it may not be to everyone's taste to get the GT Sport steering wheel. And there's also something with the mirrors as well. The mirrors, whether or not you like the Sport design mirrors, is down to a matter of taste. Some people like them, some people don't. But one of the cautions I give you with the mirrors is that it prevents you from having the folding option on the mirrors. So if you're looking for a folding option on the mirrors and you're looking for a steering wheel that isn't so busy, perhaps the Sport package isn't for you. Maybe you can convince Porsche to drop those last 2 options and still get the 3 good ones cheap. I don't know, but yeah, just a word of caution on the Sport package. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the changes that I personally have noticed about the 991.2. I hope this video has been useful to you guys. If you've got any questions, email me. My email address is in the description below, or just leave a comment below, and I really appreciate it when you like my videos and subscribe to my channel. It really helps with my videos, and I'll be doing more videos on the 991.2 as months go by, and I hope to get one myself later this year as well. So anyway, thanks for watching everyone. I'll see you next time.